Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not soil the air too much with your hand, thus, but use all gently, for the very torrent tempest, and as I may say, the whirlwind of passion. You must acquire and beget temperance that may give it smoothness. Oh, it will bend into the soul to hear a robustious, terribly painted fellow tear a passion to tatters, to very rags, to split the ears of the groundlings, who for the most part are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. I would have such a fellow whipped for ordering terror mechanics. Get out, Howard, pray you, avoid it. Pray you, avoid it. There is an old joke that many know that asks, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the punchline is, at least for some actors in New York, the punchline is by subway, bus, taxi, or walk. But most people, and probably yourself, have probably heard this joke over and over and over again, and would probably reflexively guess that the answer is what? Practice, practice, practice. And there's probably an attorney at a law firm who got that put on the gun. When I was at NYOBC, I had a wonderful lieutenant who had graduated from West Point. And he told me that the key to comedy, 3 essential elements: timing, delivery, and repetition. How do you get there? Practice, practice, practice. You want to be a magician. How do you become very, very good at it? You don't just go out and do a magic trick. You practice, practice, practice until you get it down, and then you go out and you astound and amaze your friends. And attorneys, particularly litigators, are an odd lot that most often, especially those that are the best at their craft in courtroom drama, share at least one common experience with all of those people that are good at performing. They more likely than not at some point in high school or college spend a lot of time in rehearsal, running through blocking and lighting cues, dress rehearsals, all that, to learn how to perform for an audience with exemplary perfection and make it appear natural and easy. Practice, practice, practice. Oh, what a rogue and peasant's lady am I. Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, would force his soul to his own seat, that from her working home to his body, tears in his eyes, distraction, his aspect, broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, and all for nothing. For Hecuba. What's Hecuba the hit motion to Hecuba that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? He would drown the stage with tears and cleave the general ear with horrid speech. Make mad the guilty and appall for free. Confound the ignorant and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears and eyes. Dull and peaceful, peak like geometry on pregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. Now, you have probably had some experience in your life that has taught you this same lesson, that the best way to achieve a perfect performance is to practice, practice. Whether you were learning how to walk as an infant, heading to the locker rooms and playing fields at class in high school and college, singing on the choir or glee club, or standing on a parade field in the military trying to learn drill and ceremony, form a perfect left face. You know the value added by avoiding just showing up and trying to perform some difficult task by the seat of your pants because you have had too many repetitive experiences in life that have taught you the valuable lesson that practice makes perfect. And you may have noticed that Republicans lost in Virginia again in the last election. But it is of at least anecdotal value that the Democrats who broke records in Northern Virginia during the 2016 election, who broke records during the 2017 elections when they took over the state legislature and the governorship, who broke records during the midterms, and who broke all-time records during the last pandemic election, tend to what? Have a monopoly on people who spent their time in the performing arts in high school and college, and where they learn the value of what? Practice, practice, practice. But we have some people that decide that they do not want to practice. They don't want to spend the time to perfect the ground game in a November election. They want to go hide away, run away from the world, go into a convention hall, and avoid going to practice, practice, practice. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing in them, to die to sleep no more, and by your sleep to say we end the heartache and 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub, for in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with bare bargain. Who would bottles bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied or with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment with disregard, their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Governor Northam is announcing additional COVID-19 restrictions for Christmas, just like he had announced COVID-19 restrictions during Thanksgiving. But still, Democrats who broke records in Northern Virginia during the presidential primary, broke records during the June primary, broke all-time records during the presidential election in a state that not even one political forecaster believed the president might win, have already scheduled to hold their statewide candidates primary for the gubernatorial nomination for June 8, 2021. And we're so amused with Republicans who reject masks, talk about liberty, and claim that the pandemic is a hoax, that they actually published a play-by-play report about Republicans trying to avoid getting infected and dying if they were to risk their lives going to the polls, just like the over almost 4 million voters who decided to vote in person during the pandemic election that Joe Biden won in Virginia. While they make jokes about Republicans' claims about voter fraud because nobody has been able to prove voter fraud in court. For almost 2 decades in the military, I had the opportunity to plan mass mobilization for force projection, conduct training as a company commander in basic training, and develop expertise in tactical and strategic intelligence. And if I had to predict, solely based upon the current array of forces and continuing activities among Democrats to mobilize their forces for victory next November, defeating the Republicans statewide again, I would flip that. I would only have to ask you, in your opinion, which of the two opposing parties is doing what we learned to do in the Army, ready to fight tonight, and who is training the way they will fight to bring a victory during battle next November. Our answers may be different, and that's why elections are all about choice. But there are only 2 kinds of soldiers we are taught on the battlefield, the quick and the dead. On the battlefield, only the strong survive, and on the battlefield, to the victor go the spoils. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Keeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools away to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Command Sergeant Major of the Army Daily said a few years ago that in the Army we fight and win when asked to do so. And the great existential question in the next Virginia election is whether or not you want to win. My name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. So I ask you, my fellow Christians, my fellow conservatives, my fellow Republicans, my fellow Virginians, and my fellow Americans to light the motto of the emperor: follow me. Stand with me, and together we shall overcome. Honest. And y'all come back now. Yeah.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.